Okay, I want to dive in because we've had some technical problems, and I hope that the projector will stay with us. So hello, everybody. Good to see all my friends. Great to be back. Great to see you. Can we get this light off? Yes, the colors are better, right? So there's a wonderful organization called the American Scandinavian Foundation. Have people heard about that? It's based in New York. And they have been funding artists of the upper Midwest to submit proposals for projects related to folk art. And I had received one already that helped me get going with what is Swedish folk painting. I talked about Kurbits here once, and a little bit of the Bunader, which are the long, skinny paintings. I've got one on the wall back there that you can see afterwards. Anyway, I did get it again, and it was so exciting because I was going to take students to Denmark and Sweden. I've done this now 6 times, UMD students. It's really a special trip. And when they left, then I got to do my research. So most of this is about that. I didn't include the student pictures. There were too many pictures. I can't share them all. You'd be bored out of your mind. Maybe not bored, but it's a little long. I think I better hold this because I feel like I'm going to get a backache leaning. Okay, next slide, Jane. Okay, so in Växjö, Sweden, Växjö is our sister city. Most of you know that. We will be celebrating a 40-year relationship in 2027. So as part of that, I have been visiting the vaults of the Smålands Museum. It's outside of the city center. And not last summer, but the summer before, my middle son, Shell, spent 2 hours in the vaults seeing everything they had. I don't think he liked it, but he did it. And I went back, and this is Bjorn with these incredible Bunader. These are made from Småland and Halland. These are southern Swedish paintings. They're narrative paintings. And all of those drawers are filled with treasures that my Swedish friends don't even know are from that area. So this is kind of being resurrected, and I think what they've told me is it helps to have Americans saying this stuff is really great. That people say, yeah, it is kind of good. All right, so next slide, Bunader. They're very large, some of them, and these were paintings that would be hauled out and put on the walls really for Christmas or a wedding or Easter. They were celebration, often biblical scenes, taken out, put up all around the walls. Sometimes there were even ones for the ceiling. And then they would take them down afterwards. So some of the colors are very bright because they were preserved. They weren't out all the time. So next slide. That is as wild. And I know it's a little out of focus, but I don't dare touch that machine. So we'll just pretend it's a little impressionist. It should be crisper. So Sven Nilsson's from Blekinge, the Blekinge group. So again, southern Sweden. Look at that horse and rider. This would be one of the 3 wise men. So these were very imaginative, self-taught artists. And I love the polka dots. I'm making a children's coloring book right now based on these. They're so fun and wild and fanciful. Next slide. And huge. Can you see his head? So they have these. If you go to the Smålands Museum, they have a few on display. Most of them are in storage. Next slide. So in the summer, when I was there with my students, we took a workshop with Jenny Svanberg, who paints Bunader. She's also one of the few Swedish artists actually resurrecting this old folk art style. Next slide. That is as bright. That's from the 1700s. Again, the 3 wise men. So they would, make everyone look a little Swedish. Just so delightful and playful. Next slide. And I was invited to go. There's a museum called the Bunader, or Bunads Museum, and this is in a little village called Unared. Unared is in Småland, but it's right near Halland, so it's kind of in between provinces almost. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'd been there before, and they invited me to be part of an exhibition. So the night before I left, I finished the painting, and it's that size, it's on the wall. and I rolled it up and I carried it in my suitcase. That is called a very close call. Anyway, they had arranged for us to stay at their little stuga. Oh yes, my mother has a little stuga, and they built that beautiful house. So my daughter and her boyfriend joined me. Next slide. The Bonads Museum. There is a website that will give you the history of bonader. It's in Swedish, but sometimes they do include some articles in English. Next slide. Their collection, they have over 90 original pieces between 1750 to 2024. Now they have some from 2025 because I gave them a bunch of paintings. Next slide. This is one of the rooms. And they opened it for me and you can just sit in here, okay? And it's so amazing. Now, I did ask one of the curators, Søren, he's a Danish wonderful man, about those paintings on the ceiling. And he said, well, when they were eating the breakfast and there were goats on the ceiling, they put the paintings on the ceiling so that chalk and dust wouldn't fall into your morning gröt. So there's a function to some of those ceiling paintings. I thought it was cute about the goats on the roof. But you can see how bright. And then this one is one of the Tupmålningar, the rooster paintings that were done in Småland. And that was considered a good luck painting. You know how you can have the little rooster, painted roosters from Dalarna? In southern Sweden, they had rooster paintings for good luck. Next slide. Okay, kind of fuzzy, but they're big. Some of them are really big. And that is the wedding at Cana. You see all the wise or this was the wise and foolish virgins. The other Cana is coming up. Next slide. They also collect contemporary. This is a woman from England named Sue Prince who's doing the long, skinny bonader. It's almost like a cartoon of different stories happening. Next slide, I think, yes. So Søren showing me around. Next slide. And then they have a collection. So Bernard Jönsson, you can see he died in 1992, continued the tradition with very bright colors, something that I really like to see. Next slide, you can see him painting, keeping the tradition alive. So people are always asking me about Swedish folk paintings, and they think it's like Norwegian rosemaling. And there's a connection, but they are different. It's not so much of putting many colors on your brush, you know, the way rosemaling, one brush could have 5 colors with swirls, with all these multiple colors. It's pretty flat, solid, bold colors. Next slide. A close-up, off he goes, pretty fun. And the blue bubbles, very typical of bonader, filling every space with pattern. And here's another one, another artist. You can see his palette's a little different. This is a wedding of Cana. You can see the violins and the parade of people and the blue bubbles. Blå bubblar. Next slide. So I got to sit in the archives. Everything that they had collected, I've got to spend time with. Next slide. And now just some pictures of this wonderful museum. If you happen to be in southern Sweden, it is worth the trip. I think it was 2 hours from Malmö if you're coming up from the south. Next slide. Probably 40 minutes from Växjö. They have a cute little shop and of course a little fika, of course a fika. Next slide. They do the different exhibitions. Next slide. Okay, now the opening. So we got there in time for the opening reception of Den blå tråden till Amerika. Jane, next. Here's Julia, one of the curators, and her father, Søren. They give workshops there. They have artist talks. They've now developed a new program to kind of keep this alive by adding music and digital projections. Next slide. Can you believe it? So if people think folk art was dull, no, it was not dull. Great imaginations. What does a dragon look like? No one knows. Okay, that's what it looks like. So they put me even in their little website. I was kind of pleased. I took a workshop there with their egg tempera technique. Next slide. And then the day of the show, and some of you know this from way back when. I think I did that in 1996, a long time ago, an immigrant image. And they wanted an image, and I said, well, I have a really old one, and they used that as kind of the feature image for this Blotroden, which I was very pleased with. Next slide. And there it was. So we got to the little cabin for the show. It was a reproduction of my painting, blown up. Next slide. Kind of glamour shot. and then they see me like, gosh, you don't look like your picture. No one said that. But anyway, they were really generous and so kind. And again, I think it helps having someone from America validating this old tradition, because that's what they keep telling me, that they got more PR because I was there. Next slide. So there they were. I had my wall, and they talk about the theme of water was kind of a Holland district theme of the summer. Many exhibits had a water focus. Next slide. Okay, now we're leading into the painting I did for this show. Next slide. I did my talk in Swedish. It was so embarrassing, but I did it. And I feel good that I did it, even though it may sound kind of crazy Swedish, but I think it honored the people that came. And, okay, there's some strange words, but they put up with me. So I feel good about that. Next slide. Okay, so for this exhibit, I made a new painting. And I researched, it's about when Ingrid Olsdotter left her home in Västra Torso, Småland, when she was 23. Her house is actually the red house up there. I made a little mistake. And when Johan Peter Anderson left Sweden for Minnesota, when he left, so those are their Swedish houses in Småland. Okay, next slide. Now this is what is amazing. When I was working on this painting, I didn't know anything about Ingrid. In the newspaper, I can read about Johan Peter Anderson. He came to Franconia, he was successful, but what about Ingrid? No one knew. Out of the blue, I get an email from this guy, Göran Olsson. He found out that he had a relative named Ingrid Olsson who left Sweden. And I'm like, wait a minute, this is who I'm trying to know about too. And we had the same family pictures. So we met him, next slide, and he took us to the house she left. And it's not a little house. I thought it would be a little shack. It was a really nice house. So then the mystery, why did she leave when she's 23 and she had a great house? So for me, it has, as we know when you go back, so it was my great-grandma Hulda, who I knew. It was Hulda's mother's house who left. Now, Hulda never went to Sweden. My grandma Iva never went to Sweden, but they spoke only Swedish. From Franconia, Almalund, Chisago, all those little Swedish towns. So I remember them speaking Swedish, so it was very moving to see the house that Ingrid left. Okay, next slide. Okay, so all those immigrants, over 1 million leaving, but I did feel like in my bunader, I did need to say something to acknowledge the tragic events about the forced removal of Dakota Ochite Shakawan people. Not that my relatives had direct contact because they came later. The forcible removal had already happened. But so I included this panel about the Homeland Act so that my relatives received 60 free acres, right? And then the Swedish settlers, they walked, they took trains, New York. You've all read the Immigrants, the Mulberry novels, and the hardships to get to the new land. And then I included in Dakota, Minnesota, Makai is the land of the cloudy waters in Dakota, Minnesota. Okay, next slide. So, I just stuck this in to show you, yes, I did bring students also to folk. They had to do folk painting, and they liked it. Okay, next slide. We'll go back to the painting. Okay, so then the Swedes travel to Chisago County on the St. Croix. We know how they came to Taylor's Falls. Mine went right to Franconia and farmed Ojibwe Chisago County's Ojibwe for Fair and Lovely. And then here, Johan and Ingrid, they married in 1875 in Franconia. Next slide. So he was a big-time farmer, apparently, and he was even politically active. They had 9 children. The farm eventually was 166 acres, and I did get to see where the farm was. So Franconia has a sculpture park, and I did go with an elderly great aunt, somebody, who said that was the farm. That's where they had this big farm. And so my grandmother, my great-grandma Hulda, was born in 1880. Anyway, so that's kind of my family story that I put into a bunader, and they were very moved by it. They were really interested in this. Next slide. That's the photo I saw of Ingrid and Ida. And so I added these people in. Next slide. And so my grandma Iva, of course, married a Swede in Amerika. And then they had their 3 kids, and then they had 3 kids. And then, anyway, my mother, had 3 kids. And when I've been to the cemetery in Chisago, City, is it? Yeah. Yes. On the gravestone, Ingrid Vitalis and Johan, and it says, "Gone but not forgotten." So that's kind of the name of this painting, "Gone but not forgotten." So that's my little family story. Next slide. Okay, so they had that painting, the original painting. I left it in Sweden. That is actually a print. It's amazing that the print shop could do that just from strange photos. I said, "Can you just mash them all together?" And they did. Okay, magic. So anyway, back to the Bunads Museum. They're starting to send their work around, and they put up a little show in an outdoor park. Next slide. And they made large-scale digital prints of these old paintings. And we are going to get them in Duluth in September for a show at the Nordic Center. I just talked to them last Wednesday about arranging this. So they're very excited. It will be their first time to have it in America. And I said, it's a very little gallery, but maybe it will travel. So next slide. Not only do they have these beautiful prints, they're stunning, they've also, let's go to the next slide they've also been experimenting with putting them to music. They call it a bunad bath. So that when people walk through it, they hear sounds and music about these images. So we'll get that as well. So I'm working on that. Next slide. And look at that cute little girl outside. So cute. All right, so I think I've got a little more time to show a few more pictures, right? Okay, let's keep going. All right, so that's the surprise for the Nordic Center to get those bunads from the Unari Bunads Museum to Duluth. And then why stop there? Because in 2027, for the 40th anniversary of our sister cities, we're going to have an exhibition at the Emigrant House with these old paintings and new ones, old and new. So fingers crossed, it all works out. I'm applying for money to do this. Okay, next slide. All right, just so you can have a little side trip. So we're down in Unared, we're in southern Sweden. My daughter's fiance, Gavin, was the driver, because I don't want to drive over there. And so, okay, we're going to Skåne now. So we went way down to Ravlunda, this wonderful little seaside town. Literally, my friend has that next to her house. It's so charming. Next slide. And I did a workshop with a group of women, a Himali workshop. For the Finns in the crowd, Nancy Lottie, Himali. I know Ken made those. You know about those, yes. And the Swedes loved it. They were so excited to make these. So we were going to stop. We started at 10 in the morning. We did not stop until 6 p.m. No one wanted to stop. It was super fun. Next slide. There's a woman that I wish I could bring here. Her name is Lena Odell. If you get the Hemsloyd magazines or you've seen these fine craft magazines, she's on the cover a lot. And I stalk her in a nice way. And I've met her a few times. That's her in the black dress. She is reviving folk dräkt. She collects them, but she's also making new combinations. Now, this is a very contentious issue. If you go to Setterglanten, or you go to some of the little Dalarna towns, or like, absolutely not. You may not switch the color of the socks. But then you meet people that are like, no one ever could do a perfect folk dräkt in the exact way. And also, for us, we have relatives from all over Sweden. I don't have one town I like, and I love the Rättvik the best, but they were from Falun, and I can't stand that one. So anyway, her idea is that you can mix and match. So for the folk parade one year, it would be really fun to have her insight about folk dräkt today in Sweden, because they want to keep it alive. And she said, you've got to wear it. Let's take them out of the closets. And maybe they mix and match a little. So I really like her. And she had a really fun, wonderful show in Landskrona at the Hemslöjd. That's another really great place. Next slide. They were making paper crowns. That's why I wanted to do paper crowns for Midsummer. It's kind of the rage over there. Next slide. And then this woman, she makes wild, funky jewelry. I was following her on Instagram, and I just reached out. I said, I'm going to be in Sweden. Can I meet you? Var så snäll. And she said, of course. So next slide. There we are. She makes the paper flowers. She makes jewelry. We could not stop laughing. And then what do we do? There's a hockey player that she loved. Who's a hockey player from like the 70s? Wayne Gretzky? Wayne? All right, she loves him. And I said, well, I love Bjorn Borg. And so we pulled up their image on our phones, and they joined us for fika. We could not stop laughing. So sometimes you meet kindred spirits, and we have the same face. It was incredible. All right, next slide. That's some of her work. She'll take caviar tubes and cut them apart and make really wild jewelry. I mean, very creative. She goes to the roots of some of these traditions, the bridal crown, and kind of makes it a contemporary art form. Okay, I promise I will keep going, because I see some sleepy eyes. Okay, Carl Larsson. Look what's in his study. He had a bonader, just to prove to you. So Carl and Karin really helped protect Swedish folk art because they collected it. They said, we love our tradition, and the whole national romantic movement helped preserve it. And next slide, I think, now we're in Falun. I'll tell you, if you go to Falun, let me know, because their Hemslöjd has a whole attic filled with used folk dräkt. Nothing there fits me, but I love it. Okay, next slide. More flowers for the Midsummer people who made flowers with me. That's where I was inspired at a Hemslöjd in Mora. Next slide. Okay, I'm trying to bring this woman, Britta Nilsson. Some of you, if you've been to Sweden, you've seen that type of kurbit with these unusual kind of black, orange, green. She is a contemporary folk painter who wants to come to Duluth. I'm trying to bring her. Next slide. We're in her studio, fika, her paintings, talking about folk art. How can we keep this tradition alive? It has to change a little to keep it going. Next slide. So just FYI, for those of you who have the beautiful scarves in your folk dräkt, I'm doing some research on where do these come from. Some were from Russia originally, they were from Switzerland, and then they became a common folk dräkt item and were printed in Sweden with Jewish families. So I'm on that trail right now to know more about that. So if you have those, this is what I'm doing with it. I'm putting them into these. I have another style of art where I do fabric and I superimpose different Swedish designs. And that's what these are about. And next slide, that folk dräkt, you recognize it? The pattern from Rättvik? The scarves, the bands, all of that I'm celebrating because it's women's culture that continues and is powerful and beautiful. Next slide. So my studio assistant helped me when I got back, my granddaughter, Rowan. She's a little big for her folk dress, but that's okay. And she started working on a painting with me. So there's that Swedish shawl in the background of that painting. Next slide. And if you go to the Tweed, they're up in the faculty show right now. So for the Norwegians, yes, I have Norwegian ancestry, and these women, my niece, who was Lucia once, and my friend Hilja, are in their Sami Gakti. So it's about culture and pride and perseverance, and there's a lot of Swedish blended in with some of these patterns. Next slide. Okay, Stockholm Nordiska Museet has a big show right now, all about the decorative arts of Sweden. I got to look into that next. And okay, this is the end. So what am I doing? I came back from that big trip. I made paintings and I started a new series. So I have these on your tables. Once a month at the Spirit of the Lake Community Arts Center. Has anyone heard about that? It's in Lakeside. It's only 3 years old. We started it, a group of artists, and I'm doing a monthly Swedish craft class. $20, sliding scale. If you want to pay $40, you can. Anyway, every month, a different theme. Next slide. Yule Marknad, if you're down in Minneapolis, I'll be there with my sister. Next slide. Peppercocker Bean opens this Friday. Gingerbread City. Jane, do you want to say anything about Gingerbread City? Because Sons of Norway supports it.
Well, that is, it's so moving when you're in there because the smells are so wonderful. And then Alison has made all of those, they're like cardboard, from cardboard, and the background there of the slide with the gingerbread house. And then the children make, they have a class, a workshop with the children making them, and then anybody can make their own and
Yes.
and add it to the collection.
So
and it was, yeah.
14 years. We've done this for 14 years. Whoo, doggy. And one more slide, maybe. Okay, grand finale. Back to that class. So on your table, I didn't probably have enough handouts, but you can see the next one on December 14th are painted hearts. We're going to do Dala Hester, Kurbit painting, and finish up with those Swedish ceiling crowns. Tack så jättemycket alla. Det är så snäll. Tack. Any questions? Any questions?
Alison, would you comment on one of your trademarks is the border
Yes.
that you put on things, and I don't know if people were noticing that.
I did them before Jan Brett. No, I don't know. I've been doing borders for a long time. I like to frame the image, and maybe I do kind of work in this symmetrical, it's framed in, so it feels visually balanced. There they are. And this, I will tell you, this is the hardest thing I ever did. These are Swedish cross-stitch patterns. And I crossed every single one. So my paintbrush was like a needle. And I just had to stay calm. Someone just told me I had OCD doing that, but I didn't. It was like a rosary. It was like a prayer, thinking of all the women that have done the cross-stitch for centuries, and it was never seen. I mean, my grandma's amazing work was never held up in a museum. I'm saying I'm honoring that memory, but that was a workout. That was a workout. I was like, what did I get into? So I had to cross every single one.
I just saw them, they're beautiful.
Thank you.
What I really like is how she's almost like on a swing, her feet extend the border, her hands extend the border. It's beautiful.
Thank you so much. This is the first painting that can we turn the lights for 1 second just while I'm talking about it? It's a little ambiguous. I've never kind of used magical realism, but see how she's holding the blue? It's a little unclear. My granddaughter also thought it was a swing. Some people think she's coming out of the painting. This friend of mine just overcame horrible cancer. And I had seen her in her Gakti, and I said, I've got to paint you in that. And then when I knew she was feeling better, do you want to pose for me? So she came and she wore it, and she just got into kind of this power mode stance. And I said, hold it right there. And then I grabbed a broom and a mop. So she's actually holding a broom and a mop. So I could paint her. She wanted me to put antlers on the end of the sticks. I didn't want to do that. So I didn't do it. But maybe the antlers are off the canvas. So yeah, that was a real powerful, I think. And also, I wanted the different ages together. Someone in their 20s and someone mid-50s going through a different thing. And I was just talking to children about these, you know, what expression they saw, or even if they stood like Hilya standing, you know, how do they feel? And they said, I feel proud when I stand with my hands up. So that's why I love getting over there. That's my inspiration. And then I come back and work. Talk so Mike. Thank you.